Hill Country Horrors, The Yogurt Shop Murders. By popular demand, I've decided to start with a very popular unresolved mystery from our lovely capital, Austin, Texas. This case actually had a few odd twists and turns, so I'll do my best to get all the facts down. Here are a couple of articles about the murders as well, link. I also set up an album of some pictures pertinent to the crime, link. On December 6, 1991, 17-year-olds Eliza Thomas and Jennifer Harbison were cleaning up after hours at their job at I Can't Believe It's Yogurt, off of West Anderson Lane. While cleaning up, they talked over their plans on a sleepover that night with Jennifer's sister Sarah, 15, and their friend Amy Ayers, 13. Sadly, their night of fun would be anything but. Around midnight, firefighters responded to a fire at I Can't Believe It's Yogurt. While taking care of the fire, one firefighter spotted what seemed to be someone's foot near the back door. When the firefighter got closer, it turned out to be 3 charred bodies in a pile, with lighter fluid-soaked styrofoam cups scattered over the bodies. They were naked, and bound with their own clothing. I found info stating that some of the girls were raped, but it didn't say how many or who. Jennifer, Eliza, and Sarah were severely charred from the fire, but upon inspection each girl's cause of death was a gunshot wound to the head. After further inspection of the building, Amy was found barely alive near the bathrooms, with 2 shots to the head. She ended up succumbing to her injuries. Once the police came to the scene, there was little evidence to work with due to the water and traffic from the firefighters. The first suspect for the murders was the broomstick murderer, Kenneth Allen McDuff, but he was quickly dismissed as a suspect. For over a week they had no leads until a local teen, Maurice Pierce, 16, was caught at nearby North Cross Mall with a .22 caliber gun. When questioned about the gun, Pierce bragged that the gun was used to kill the yogurt shop girls. The police were unsure of this, so they ended up wiretapping Pierce and listening in on his conversations with friends. While having a convo with Forrest Wellburn, 15, telling him about the murders and the gun, Forrest had no idea what he was talking about. The police brought in Wellburn for questioning, and he passed a polygraph test. However, while taking the polygraph test he brought up the names of 2 more of his and Pierce's friends, Michael Scott and Rob Springsteen, both 17. There was nothing to connect them to the crime, however. They let Pierce go once they found the ballistics of his gun didn't match. 5 years passed, and nothing had changed despite the thousands of tips they had coming in. Then, in 1996, a new detective took over, Detective Paul Johnson. While searching through tips, for some reason Pierce's name stood out to Johnson. Johnson brought all 4 boys, now in their 20s, back in for questioning. At first, they denied having anything to do with the murder, but after an intense interrogation, they started to talk. Scott was the first to confess, stating he helped with the murders. Scott said that Springsteen and Pierce brought guns into the yogurt shop, planning to rob it. Wellburn waited in the car as lookout. One girl started to scream, so Scott took the gun from Pierce, and Pierce started to yell at the girls for money. Scott stated that Springsteen hit and sexually assaulted one of the girls. One of the girls started screaming again, and at Pierce's insistence, Scott shot her. Scott ran out of the shop once the fire started, running towards the car, only to find out Wellburn had fled while they were inside. In 1999, all 4 men were charged with capital murder. Springsteen confessed to shooting one of the girls, but Pierce and Wellburn never confessed, and were let go. Due to the lack of evidence, all they had to go on were these confessions. With nothing but the confessions and a small amount of circumstantial evidence, the prosecutors won. Scott was given life in prison, and Springsteen was sentenced to death. With the convictions, and the 2 men in prison, you'd think the murders were solved and done with. Well, they would have been if not for DNA evidence. In 2007, DNA evidence found on Amy turned out to be from an unknown male, and at first the police thought, oh, there must have been a 5th man. Of course many people thought this was ludicrous, the backroom couldn't have held so many people. Without DNA evidence against them, Scott and Springsteen were released from prison. Scott was released in 2007, Springsteen 2009. During their trial and all throughout their incarceration, the boys stated they were innocent. Many people believe their confessions were forced due to the intensity of their interrogations. This document shows the interrogation officer holding a gun to Scott's head during his interrogation. It also turns out that all but 2 customers were spoken to about that day. The 2 who were never found happened to be 2 men that were seen in the yogurt shop at closing. The law enforcement on the case have no doubt in their mind that the 4 friends did it, but until they find evidence, the men walk free. and the murders are back to being unsolved.
Thanks for the write-up. I hadn't heard of this before. I feel terrible for those girls and their families. Is there any DNA evidence at all tying any of the 4 men to the crime or just the unknown male? Also, another mystery, why was a frozen yogurt shop called I Can't Believe It's Not Yogurt? Is it yogurt or not?
I found out that I get my nails done at the exact location of these murders, and have been obsessed ever since. Something about the fact that I spent so much time relaxing and getting pampered in likely the exact spot that these murders occurred really disturbed me for a number of weeks, and I couldn't let it go. I staked out the location, took pictures to compare to the original crime scene photos. I think I scared some people at the time. The ladies who work there now light incense for the slain girls every morning, and were quoted as saying something to the effect of "We remember their lives, because we hope someone would remember ours," which really touched me. I've lived in Texas Hill Country for the past 6 to 7 years, and would love to be of any help to your write-ups and investigation, if you need hands at local libraries or what have you. I haven't read your write-up yet even, but thanks for this. I truly believe this case can be solved if the APD would stop being so stubborn and own up to their colossal errors. If we could get more attention turned to this case, and find out who the men who stayed after hours were, this would be solved.
Glad you're sticking to writing about crime rather than committing it. Winking face. Digging into this, I've noticed a few comparisons to the Burger Chef murders in Speedway, Indiana, to the point that I've read multiple comments saying the 2 men implicated in the yogurt shop murders matched the description of the suspects in the Burger Chef murders. Each has a party who is fair-haired and a party who is bearded, and both sets of suspects appeared to be in their 30s. In all fairness, the crimes do seem very similar, as do the suspects. But the Burger Chef murders happened not only in a different state, but they happened nearly 13 years before the yogurt shop murders. I think the 2 crimes are unrelated, but it is weird how the suspects and targets match up so well.
I'm skeptical that these 2 events are linked, because they're both somewhat inept. One of the girls in the yogurt shop was still alive when the killers left, and several people survived in Las Cruces. I would think that a group of serial murderers crossing state lines to commit massacres like this would either be caught or be more effective. But maybe that's expecting too much out of law enforcement back in the 90s?
This is a very interesting case on several different levels. Still, there are really no leads on who really did it. There were actually 2 unknown DNA samples. One was degraded so that it may not be usable in a CODIS comparison, but both were good enough to eliminate the 4 suspects. Witnesses saw 2 men in the shop near closing time who were never identified. They were probably the killers. A couple of hours earlier, a former policeman reported seeing a young man there who he thought was suspicious. The prosecution used him in both trials, and there was a suggestion the description he gave was close to that of Pierce, but no one came right out and said it. They did not call the witnesses who saw the 2 men who were there near closing, possibly because they did not resemble any of the 4 suspects. The defense should have used those witnesses, but they didn't, and that was never explained.
Thank you for this. I moved to Austin right before Springsteen was released, and I was surprised that I had never heard of the case before. This is a very safe city, so these killings really stand out. I honestly don't know what to think. A lot of people see the confessions as proof enough, but now that I know more about false confessions, I'm not as convinced. Plus the DNA. And I think this is another example of Lynn not being able to handle this type of crime and bungling the investigation. I'm not sure APD could solve a crime of this nature now, and Austin was a lot smaller back then.
Good write-up, thank you. This case hit close to home for me. Back when I was in high school, I used to work at an ice cream store, often alone and closing up at night. Not long after, I moved to Austin, and the yogurt shop murders happened the next year. I tried to find the memorial a couple of weeks ago but wasn't able to. It's not in front of the store that I could find. Maybe it's at the end of the center.
I searched to see if I could find the exact place of the memorial, but all I found was a picture in an article stating it was outside where the yogurt shop used to be.
My town had a double murder in a small shop on Main Street a few years back. The ass who killed them was caught quickly, thank goodness. But it still bothers me that I buy my rolling papers where a father and son died over some camera equipment.
My take on this one was a robbery gone overboard. 2 guys rob the place. One goes beyond the plan, ties up the girls, decides to go wild and rape them all. Shabby found item attempt to cover evidence with the fire, shows it wasn't planned. Chances are only one of the guys was responsible. Semen was from one perp, not both. I think it's possible the one who went beyond the plan wound up getting killed by the other. It's happened before. That, or they went way beyond what they thought they'd do and vowed to never do it again. Even BTK did this. First kill had him raping the little girl, he never touched a kid again. Rape.
So, what's your theory on what happened? Post it in the comments below. Thank you for listening. You can find the original post in r/unresolved mysteries through the link in the description box below. I like being able to listen to posts when I'm busy doing something else and can't read them. So I made this video for anyone who wants to listen to their Reddit posts. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and don't forget to hit the subscribe button below to get more puzzling mysteries.